Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. What's happening, my paranormal junkies? Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, and I'm your host, Danny Whitson. Guys, we got a fantastic show for you this evening. I see the chat room's loaded up already. Let me give a big shout out to my man, $6 million man. That makes sense to me because I'm old. Live light like always. Nice to see you. And who else we got in there? We got Diggs BTW7. Well, thanks for joining, Lisa. Nice to see you, Lisa. Guys, we got a great show. You guys are going to love tonight's guest. But first, I want to talk about something. Well, first, we are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thought I forgot that. No, I got it. All right. Now, I don't know, some of you guys may have heard this, but last week, I noticed all over social media, there was a lot of UFO, UAP, news going on. A lot of pictures, a lot of sightings. There was actually a sighting over the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. There was videos floating around on TikTok. There was one I saw in, I believe it was an airport or an Air Force base in Britain, and a lot of these were floating around. And it even, got the eye and ear of some of the normies. Yeah. The normies, the people who are not part of this world, not the paranormies. So they were posted, a lot of it was on social media and on TikTok. A lot of people were making their little TikTok videos. Well, I caught wind of this. I looked into it and I sent it over to my man, Ryan Stacy, who is, a private investigator himself. So he really knows how to look into things. And come to find out, most of these pictures were bogus. Most of them were CGI. A lot of stuff was it wasn't real. And unfortunately, the day and age we live in, the information age, this is something that happens a lot. Chris, pull those pictures up there real quick. I just want to see if, like this image here, this was supposed to be of a UAP. Ryan looked in this. This is clearly CGI. It was, photoshopped. And then the lights over the Capitol. Do we have that one on there too? That right there. Now that's been all over the place. And yes, there was an incident once, that has happened. That's been documented, that a UFOs have flown over the Capitol building, but not this. It didn't happen last week. So, and I don't know who's doing this, who's putting the bad stuff out there. But like I said, the best way to hide the truth is to dirty it up with BS as well. So just remember, always keep your guards up when you do see stuff like that, because there is a group out there that is putting bad information out there as well. And also, it may have become, apparently there was supposed to be like an alien invasion today. Like us versus the aliens in the sky. Supposed to have been a big deal today. That was another rumor. I don't know, but that didn't happen either. So, but anyways, guys, just remember, always keep your guard up. Don't trust everything you see. And we know just because there is, fake stuff out there, that doesn't mean, this isn't a real phenomenon, because we know it is. All right, guys, now that that's said, we're going to get right on to tonight's guest. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull it up. All right. She is a best-selling author, a galactic ambassador, and a channeler of initiative transformational coach, specializing in her unique energy healing. I tell you what, guys, let's welcome tonight's guest, Dr. Lisa Thompson.
Hi, Danny. So great to
How
be here with you.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, Lisa, we're excited to have you. Looks like we got a good group here tonight, waiting, getting their questions ready for you. But I tell you what, if you don't mind, do you care to introduce yourself a little better to the viewers?
Yeah, I would love to. So I've actually been an experiencer contactee my entire life, it turns out. And my first conscious memory of being taken onto a craft was when I was 15. So I'd love to share that story if you're up for that. But over the last 6 years, I've really been doing more of that deep dive spiritual connection with my ETs. And it was back in 2022 that I started channeling, specifically the Arcturians. And then in 2023, they had me bring forth 12 additional galactic races. And so I regularly commune with them. I get information from them. And then I also do a night sky watch UFO tour on the Big Island of Hawaii, where we get to see spacecraft all the time.
See, that is awesome. I've always heard Hawaii is a very active place. Matter of fact, I remember it was maybe a few years back, they had a really major sighting there, didn't they? That even made national news. And
Yeah.
Ryan Stacy actually investigated that. And he came up with some interesting stuff too. So yeah, that's a very active place where you're at.
It is, and there are a few reasons why, which we can go into if you would like to. So I'm just open for whatever questions you have.
Well, absolutely, I do, but I do want to back up to the really good stuff. The thing that you opened with. You said how old were you when you had your first experience?
So my first conscious experience, and I say conscious because I had experiences prior to that, but they didn't let me remember them. But when I was 15, it was a nighttime situation where I was asleep in my bed, and all of a sudden I wake up and I'm inside this spacecraft. And it was a small shuttlecraft. It was just me and my ET guide, just the two of us. And I didn't have any fear whatsoever because number one, he looked human. And number two, I felt like I knew him, like he was my friend, like I had met him a lot of times before. So we're flying through space, and from the perspective of being inside the craft, the walls looked transparent where you could just really fully see out into space, the darkness, the pinpoints of the starlight, the different beautiful colors of the gases that we were passing through. And then we finally land where we were going. And when we got there, I asked him where we were. He said that we were inside of Io, one of Jupiter's moons. And then he started touring me around what looked like a hospital facility where I could see into different rooms and people were being examined, but nothing scary, no probes or anything. But everyone looked human. And so my next question to him was, are you human? Is everyone here human? And he said, no. Those of you that we have brought here are human. We are not. We are humanoid, but we disguise ourselves because our form tends to scare you. So then my next question to him was, well, why are we here? Why am I here? And he said that those of us that had been brought there were being tested to see if something happened to Earth, if we could live in an environment like that or something similar. Now, this is back in 1988, where we were in the middle of the Cold War still. We were on the verge of World War III. So there was a timeline potential where something really bad could have happened. So then at the end of the tour, I asked him if I could see what he really looked like, because as a kid, I was obsessed with animals, and the weirder, the better. So my doctorate's actually in zoology, marine biology. And so when he showed me what he looked like, he was about 7 feet tall. He had pure white skin, big dark eyes, very long red hair. We're talking fire engine red, not like earth human red hair. And then he had triads tattooed on his cheeks. Very extreme in terms of his size and coloration. So I could see how some people would be afraid of that form, but completely benevolent. So then I get returned back home, and I just remember laying in my bed, like, okay, this was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And I just kept, for a few months, I thought it was just a dream. But now I know With dreams, we forget details typically within the first 10 minutes of waking up, and I didn't forget the details. But after that experience, fast forward a few months later, I was reading Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, about his experiences of being taken by gray ETs. And at the end of his book, he's interviewing different people that had also been taken. And they all have the same kind of gray experience that he has, except for one guy had a completely different story where he was telling Whitley that he was taken to a moon of Jupiter and told he was one of the chosen ones. And Whitley made a little side comment, kind of sarcastically, "I hope it isn't Io." And as soon as I read that, I had head to toe chills and tears started coming down my face. So for me, that's my body's way of telling me that was a real experience, not just a dream. Now
when he says Io, what do you mean? Like that was a connection to your experience?
Yeah, because Io is where I was taken. That's
okay.
Yeah. And Io, I think why he was sarcastic about it is because Io is the most volcanic planetary body in our solar system. It's the least likely to have life on the surface, but a lot of our planetary bodies have life inside of the moon or the planet. So, so then at the time, my mother and I were part of a spiritual school of enlightenment, and we were learning about higher consciousness and other dimensional reality and things outside normal 3D matrix reality. And so I knew that if I told my mom, she would believe me. So I did. And a few days later, she introduced me to another student at our school that had formerly been very high government, who knew about some of the different ET races that our government knows about and even works with. So I shared my story with him. And when I got to the part of describing what they look like, he was like, I don't know that race, he said, but we don't know all of them. There are so many out there. But he said, you had a real experience. So not only did I have my own validation, but I had that external validation as well. And that really planted the seed for the work I do now as a Galactic ambassador. But back in, the 80s, 90s, and even most of 2000s, I had to hide that side of myself to be taken seriously in my different careers. Right. Because
I could imagine. Well, back then also you didn't have one thing that the internet and social media has given us is it's given us, areas to connect. We can connect with people who've had similar experiences. But back then, you're just kind of on Lonely Island, you're like, what's going on? Now it sounds like your mother was supportive, though. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I mean, we were also learning about extraterrestrials, fairies, dragons, Sasquatch, all the different things at our school. And so, I grew up fortunately in a household where all of that was just normal, not paranormal. It was just normal.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of like our house now. I kind of wonder, like my daughter, I'm like, it's, Sasquatch, UFOs, aliens, that's just normal to her, what I mean? So which I think that's good though. That's good that you did have a place to where you could talk about that at least at home. And this is something that you kind of carried and kept with you, and even though you went into one field with with animals, but this is something else that you've always looks like this is a passion for you as well.
It is, and it's only been since I've moved here to Hawaii 4 years ago that I actually fully stepped out of the proverbial closet, the ET closet, because after I left academia, academia was too confined, really too in the box in terms of what you can research, what you can write about, getting it published, all of that. And so after that, I was in mortgage for 5 years, interior design for 12 years. So I had these really normal careers. And then 7.5 years ago, I started my spiritual business. And I one of my modalities is past life regression therapy. And I was having clients come to me and they were experiencing Earth lives, but then they were also, a lot of them were starting to come up with lives that were not of this earth. And so that really kind of opened the door for me. And 6 years ago, though, I was taking a psychic intuition class, and the first night of class, our teacher led us through a meditative journey to meet a spirit guide that would help us get extra information if we needed it. And so I had done a lot of spirit guide journeys, met humans and animals. This time, though, was completely different. I went to a different realm, and in front of me were the most beautiful blue beings. They had large bald heads, bigger eyes, skinny bodies, and they exuded the most pure love I have ever felt in my life, more so than anything here on earth. And their message to me was, you are one of us, we are one of you, we are family. And we were to ask if they had a name that they wanted to be called. And even though there was a group of them, but there was one that was to the front that was the spokesperson. And the name that was given to me was Uluru. And then they also gave me a gift of a crystal. Now, at the time, I didn't know who they were, but I came out of this journey and we're going around class sharing who our spirit guides are. Everyone's got normal humans, but I have these other beings. There happened to be a lady in class that knew some of the different ET races and what they look like. And so she was like, it sounds like you're talking about either the Arcturians or the blue avians. So I had to go home and Google what those were. And as soon as I saw the images of the Arcturians, it's exactly what I had seen in this journey. And so that's the group that really wanted to come through first. And so when I moved here to Hawaii 4 years ago, then I started my UFO tour and I really just started sharing everything.
So you've had some really cool coincidences that have kind of led you to where you are. Well, we don't call them coincidences. I'll tell you what, we do have our first question, and she is like our leading questionnaire of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Literally, and she has the best questions. And I think, Chris, we need to get Liv Light a theme song. Like her first question of the night, she needs her own theme song. I really think so. But here we go. Liv asks, and she always tries to tongue tie me too. All right. And she does her homework, by the way. I'm telling you, she gets up early. Liv Light, what ages did you go to the RSE? Were you taught by Jay-Z Knight? And what do you think is the Ramtha's main message for humanity?
Well, I love, Liv, that you picked up on that it was RSE, Ramtha School of Enlightenment. And so we moved to Yelm in 1986 when I was 13 years old. So that was my first exposure, although my mother and my aunt, we moved from Oklahoma City. And back in 1985, they were already watching the videos and listening to the cassette tapes. So that was already infiltrating my mind, like when I was 12. So I went to the school actively from ages 13 to 16. And when I was 16, then I was like, okay, I just want to be a normal teenager. But I kept that up. But then when I was 28, I got reintroduced to it by someone who turned out to be my boyfriend, my mom's chiropractor. And so
Mom's chiropractor was your boyfriend?
Yeah, she got me an appointment. I came home. I was living in Chicago because I was doing my postdoc. And my mom, she's like, I got you an appointment. And a week before I came out, he called me up and asked me out on a date. Because
this was after the appointment.
Nope, it was before the appointment.
Oh, before the appointment. Okay.
My mama had shown pictures of me, so he was like, will you go on a date with me? But so him being a scientist and me being a scientist, he was like, you're going to love what is being taught now because it's all about the science underlying the spirituality. So we were learning quantum mechanics, brain physiology. And this is back when Dr. Joe Dispenza was actually a student at the school as well. So for anyone who knows Dr. Joe, he started in the school, and that's where he started the research that he does. So then I was active from age 28 until 32 when I had my first child. But Ramtha actually named my daughter when I was 5 months pregnant, and that was the last event I went to. And then as far as Ramtha's main message to humanity, make known the unknown. We all are our own gods. God is within. God is not external. Or a couple other tenets as well. Oh, we create our reality. So consciousness plus energy creates the nature of reality. And so really those are the principles that I took away from the school, as well as this idea that all timelines really are existing simultaneously at the quantum level. And that's one of the things that my ETs really are pulling through me. My newest book that's coming out in January, it's all about timeline shifting. And that's something that I did learn, from the Ramtha school as well. But
I need to check into that. You know what's weird is literally this morning, I'm driving down the road and that thought pops in my mind. And kind of basically how we're the master of our universe. We are the creator of our reality. And I don't want to sound doom and gloom here, because this is going to sound a little negative and doom and gloom, but I was thinking about some of the younger generation, how they really want to push to change the world on certain topics and certain things, which I think that is a great attitude to have. But also I think human beings as a group of a whole, there's bad things in our nature.
Mm.
And I think it's hard to control the whole, so control you.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We are the only ones that we can control. And
absolutely.
When we do that, though, when we are actively creating our reality and creating our environment, the people, places, things around us, then we are actually shifting to other timelines that are different than what maybe the fear-based, polarized humans are doing.
I totally believe that, and and there's a lot of people that are familiar with that topic. It's like, well, if you think good things will happen. Well, technically, kind of, yeah, that's true. The more positive energy you put out there, it's there to bump into. It's so. I'm totally. I need to check on that. I need to check on the Ramtha school of because a lot of stuff I already agree with. I already believe. So
yeah. Well, it's considered a cult, and so there's a lot of judgment about it, and some of the stuff that came through Ramtha, I think, was being filtered through Jay-Z's ego. Jay did not always follow what Ramtha was teaching in a lot of ways, and so there's a lot of controversy there.
One thing I like to do, and I do cherry pick, and it's because I can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can go grocery shopping. I don't shop in one area. And, so I drop names. I drop names like Jesus. I think Jesus said some really great stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And, so did Buddha. So did there's all these great teachings and things that you can learn from. And necessarily, I don't think you have to jump in and be a part of the, you don't have to sign up and be a member,
Right.
I mean, so that's just the kind of way I look at it. And
yeah.
But I think that's great. And like I said, leave it to live to pop up with a fantastic question like that. So let me ask you this. Okay. So, I mean, you did have your experience, and it's kind of led to, it seems like some really cool things happened to you that was almost meant to be, for, you had the clarification, that was a real experience. But now you're in Hawaii, and is this somewhere other than it just being a beautiful place to live, and probably works really well with what you do, on the, your other job. But as far as it seems like you're in the right place too for some sky shows.
Yes. Well, it was the middle of COVID, and I was called here to the island. I don't know. I mean, I do know why now, but there was no reason for us to move. We were living in Olympia, Washington, but my daughter, she's the one that instigated it. And it was May of 2020, and she's like, I don't want to live in Olympia anymore. I want to move to California. And I was like, oh, no offense to California, but I'm like, the water's too cold. If I'm going to go, I'm like, I moved to Hawaii. It just fell out of my mouth. And my husband at the time, he looks at me and he's like, well, I'd moved to Hawaii. And 6 months later, we bought a house here. So I've officially been here 4 years. And, I didn't move thinking UFO tours. But then when I got here, I was looking at the night sky. And I live in the desert part of the island. We also have dark sky ordinance because Mauna Kea Observatory is basically in my backyard. And so
that is so cool.
they can't have the light pollution. And so we were seeing so many spacecraft just popping out all the time. And I had done a UFO tour in Sedona, Arizona, probably 5.5 years ago. Took the kids and family on spring break. And that was the first time. So they have a lot of different operators that do UFO tours in Sedona. And that was the first time that I got to use the Generation 3 military night vision goggles. And that was a game changer for how much more you can see in the night sky.
Wow.
So then I was like, okay, well, we're in Hawaii. There's a very, very strong connection with the Hawaiians and the star people, the Pleiadians specifically. We have a lot of the trans-medium craft, the ones that come in and out of the water. We have the volcanoes that attract the spacecraft. And so I'm like, I'm going to start my UFO tour business. And it's been going great. I absolutely love what I do because I love educating the public, because there is so much misinformation out there. Disinformation, misinformation. And so, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I definitely, so much we're going to talk about on that, because, you know, I've got so many questions, you know, especially just brought up, you know, why we do got another question from Liv. Liv says, I love Hawaii. I want to go too, Liv. I've never been there, but I do want to go visit Hawaii. Do you feel a connection to the Lemurians? Am I saying that right?
Lemurians, yep.
Have you encountered Pele?
Pele.
Oh my God. She's doing this on purpose. Hold on. Namaka Adeba. Oh, I can't say that. I don't know. Can you've been in Hawaii 4 years? Come on, Lisa. Can you pronounce that?
Namaka Oka.
Namaka Oka or Menahun?
And the Menahune.
Menahune?
Yeah.
Liv, you're killing me. All right.
Okay. So I absolutely feel a very strong connection with Lemuria. In fact, this is part of the lost continent of Lemuria, all the Pacific Islands running from Easter Island all the way down to New Zealand.
Gotcha.
And so we're the mountain remnants of the Lemurian continent. And I know that a lot of people who feel called to be here experienced lives in Lemuria and connection with the Pleiadians specifically, because the Pleiadians were directly teaching the Lemurians their ways. Now, Pele is the one that actually called me to the island. She told me very specifically, she's like, you think the manta rays brought you? But she's like, no, I did. And I put you in Waikoloa in the desert so that you could do these tours. So
that is awesome. Well, yeah. Apparently Liv has been there many times. I have not. So, but yeah, another great question. And so once again, one of those things it was meant to be for you, Lisa, to be where you're at and doing what you're doing. And I mean, and then, you know, let's be honest, it's Hawaii. So who doesn't want to live in Hawaii? You know,
my son does not.
Really? What, you think you may have got it too hot? Yes. Oh my gosh. Is it? I mean, I know it's warm there. Is it humid?
It's a little humid, but it's in the 80s year round. And he likes the cold weather.
Gotcha. So. Well, I can definitely handle, you know, I can handle Hawaii. I'm pretty sure I could. And an observatory close by. That's got to be super awesome. You know, real quick, have you ever went and visited that?
I've been to the visitor center, but I have not been all the way to the top where the telescopes are. It's really cold up there, and you have to have a 4-wheel drive, and it's like just under 14,000 feet. And I spent 2 weeks in Peru at that kind of altitude, so it takes something to get used to.
Gotcha. I had to ask. I'll never forget one time doing a show for a famous musician at his house, private party, and he had his own observatory type telescope in his backyard. It was pretty amazing. But anyways, guys, we got to cut to the commercial break. We'll be right back with Dr. Lisa Thompson right after these messages. You don't want to miss it. We got some good stuff coming up. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
Business. It's your property.
Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services.
Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, guys, if you're just now tuning in, we've been talking to Dr. Lisa Thompson, best-selling author and Galactic ambassador. And you're also the host of your very own podcast as well, right, Lisa?
I am. It's called Connection to the Cosmos.
What was the name of the podcast, by the way?
Pardon?
Connection to the Cosmos. We'll definitely get a chance to plug that again, but I can't remember if we talked about that earlier or not. But anyways, I want to get to the good, juicy stuff here. I want to get right into it, kind of where we were leading up anyways. I'm talking about these tours. Now, I'm sure you have probably seen all kinds of stuff. And, you know, we did mention how there is a lot of disinformation out there. I don't know why they're doing, well, we have our theories, but, you know, there's a lot of, you know, of that out there. But, you know, you being somebody who does these tours, you get to eyewitness, see this firsthand. One thing that really interests me that you brought up are the crafts that go in the water, in the ocean, and come out. Do you have any stories of those? Anytime have you ever witnessed that yourself?
So personally, not yet, but I have met, probably 20 or 30 people that on all sides of our island have experienced that. Now, why we have so much of that activity is there is a suspected underwater ET base off the southern part of the state. And so a lot of that activity is actually seen down at South Point. But again, on my island, it's on all sides. And so one really great story that one of my neighbors came on my tour and shared a story that they were night fishing just at the boat launch 15 minutes away from where we live. And it was about 9 o'clock at night, pitch black ocean. And they're just out fishing. And all of a sudden, this massive white light craft comes up out of the water in front of them. And they got scared at the time. This was several years ago. They got scared and they dropped their fishing gear and hopped in the truck and drove off. I had another gentleman who he and his brother, they take their fishing boat several miles offshore to do nighttime fishing in like 3,000 feet deep water. And it was about 3:30 in the morning, and he and his brother were out there, and all of a sudden the ocean just fully lights up all around them. And then the one that you were referring to was actually over on Oahu. Mass sighting. People got it on video. It was all over the news. It was December of 2020. And what they saw was a big blue cigar-shaped kind of orb, energy orb, up in the night sky. And then it moved, and then it went down into the water. So some of the news outlets reported that it crashed into the water, but it didn't crash. You know, it purposely did that. And there was no debris found. Water is an excellent place to hide if you are a spacecraft.
So, okay, whenever because you hear the theories that, you know, that they have their bases underwater, you know, there's alien bases, there's, you know, and when you think about it, when you look at Earth, you know, this planet, you know, it's majority water.
It is.
I mean, if you flew by and looked at Earth, you would not think that the majority of the, you know, creatures living on that planet, the life would be on the dirt. You know, you'd be like, no, that's a water, you know, those are water life forms have to live there. You know, that would make the most sense. So what's your theory behind that? What do you think is going on there?
Couple things. One is that I do think that some of the off-world visitors do probably have bases under the water, and it's around the world. You know, there's a deep trench off of Puerto Rico where there's a lot of activity, off of California.
Whole lot around Puerto Rico too. Whole lot.
And then Lake Titicaca. I was there last year for 2 weeks in Peru. So the other thing that I do understand, and I think that this is what's going on, particularly with Hawaii, is that some of these craft that people are seeing are actually from inner Earth. There are inner Earth brothers and sisters, and they're coming up to the surface to just check on the status of what's going on. And there are people like me that in my astral travels, I go down into inner Earth, and basically we're communicating about what's going on and sharing energy.
So do you think these are maybe beings that, you know, they're just another type of earthling, another type of, you know, because I mean, you know, I've always played with the ideas like, you know, we tend to think that we're the most intelligent, you know, top of the food chain type being on this planet, but not necessarily.
No, we're not. And so the inner Earth beings, there are different kinds of beings that live inside the Earth, but the human types are called the Agarthans. And specifically the ones that live inside of Mount Shasta live in the city of Talos, so they're known as Telosians. But we have this civilization. So when Lemuria and Atlantis were basically being destroyed as civilizations, some of the people went inside the Earth to survive. And they created their own civilization down there. And they've had enough time to be able to really shift into more of a fifth dimensional reality. And so if we are vibrating in our really low third and fourth frequency, we're not going to see them. If we raise our vibration up to that fifth level, which we can do, absolutely, then we can see them. But they also can lower their density vibration to appear to people. And I've known people, specifically Saint Germain. He is one of the Telosians, and he actually shows himself regularly to people who go to Shasta.
So, and you said, so regularly people have seen him?
Mm-hmm, they have.
Is that what you're saying?
My friend Pamela, she actually met him when she went to Shasta. She recognized him immediately.
Wow. So what is one of the experiences that you had on one of your tours, one of the, you know, sightings, you know, share one of those with us.
So actually, the one that is one of my favorites was actually, it was just a personal experience in my neighborhood across the street from my house, where this was March 7th of last year. I had been speaking about my book, Connection to the Cosmos, down at our local bookstore an hour south of where I live. It gets dark really early here, so it was like 7 o'clock at night. I'm driving home. Whenever I'm driving and it's dark like that, I'm always looking for stuff because I see stuff all the time. And the whole way home, the hour drive, I'm talking to my team like, hey guys, I was just talking about you. Please show me signs that you're here with me. And I didn't see anything till I get about a block away from my house. And then all of a sudden I see this bright light above the tree line above my neighbor's house. So I acknowledge it. I'm like, I see you. I'm going to go park my car at my house though. Stay there. So I parked my car, walked to the end of my driveway, and it's still there. So what it looked like was a very big, bright, pulsing star. Now, again, I am a trained scientist, so I have my constellation app on my phone. So I got that baby out to make sure it was not a star or a planet. Because, you know, Venus often gets mistaken for a space ship.
It does a whole lot.
And right now, this time of year, it is so bright in our skies. And so anyway, so nothing was there on the constellation app. So then I start talking to it. And I'm like, okay, I know you're a spacecraft. Please do something for me that a spacecraft can do that a star cannot do. And so again, it was pulsing bright. And then all of a sudden, when I asked that, it completely dimmed out where I couldn't see it. And a few seconds later, it came back on full brightness. And I was like, do it again, do it again. I got really excited. And it did it again. It dimmed out. And then it came back on. And I was like, do it again. It did it 5 times for me because I asked 5 times. I needed that validation.
Wow.
So then I realized sometimes I'm just so in the moment. I forget I have my phone. But then I was like, oh, let me try to take pictures and video of it. And so what my eyes were seeing was very different than what the phone was picking up, which is pretty normal. But at some point I had to go in the house. I hadn't even been in. And I would thank it. I always thank them for showing up. And so then I go in the house and look at the video and the pictures. And the video, it's super cool. It actually, you can see the pulsing, but you can see the spinning of the craft as well. And then, okay, so then the very next morning, March 8th, starting at around 5:30 in the morning, people were starting to drive to work. And they were noticing these spaceship clouds all over the island. You know, in science, they're called lenticular clouds, but the shape of spaceships. And these clouds, though, they stayed completely in place from 5:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. that day. And it was all over social media because we don't have the right atmospheric conditions to create those kind of clouds. And so,
Wow.
I mean, everyone was like, oh my gosh. And my friends were like, do you see these Pleiadian craft? And so I did get confirmation that that craft that I experienced above the tree, that was just my personal experience. And then these, cloud craft or craft that are hiding in clouds were definitely Pleiadian craft. So that was a really cool thing. And that's the day that I was actually channeling the Pleiadians for my book. So,
I always find it interesting too, is, a lot of people, talk about how they have a psychic subconscious, communication.
yes.
With the crafts and the sightings. And so many people say that. And it's so, it's so interesting. It's almost like if you're connected and your windows are open, that you're able to communicate.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I teach people how to do, both on my tours and then in private sessions, because we all have the ability to have this kind of communication, have this connection. We are part of the greater galactic community. They do want us to know about them. They don't want us to be afraid of them. And, the ones that I really work with are 5th dimension or higher. I don't do anything that is still polarized. And I stay completely out of those lower frequencies.
Do you think that's why, human beings have such a hard time communicating, consciously, without speech? I do believe, remote viewing and a lot of things that we have experimented with, we've just touched the surface on trying to explore and learn about ourselves. But it's just that we're not in that higher dimension as the others are.
Yeah, well, and part of it is that we, we're here as humans to experience all the things. We choose our experiences before we incarnate here. And so, but we have free will. And so if you don't like what your life is doing, you can change it. Absolutely. And so for me, really, I personally had to clear out a lot of blockages, old stories that were just keeping me stuck. The more that we clear out emotional baggage, trauma, that opens us up to having a higher frequency vibration and really operating from a state of joy, being able to follow our passions, coming from a place of love instead of judgment and fear.
I totally agree. Well, we've got another question from Live Light here. Let's see something. Has Ulura the Arcturian, am I saying that right, suggested how best to activate our latent DNA? As a galactic ambassador, have you channeled any messages for us 3Ders to improve our world and our frequency? I love the way, Live Light classifies us as 3Ders.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, so actually in both my Connection to the Cosmos book and my Wisdom of the Galactics book, there are journeys that the different ETs have led to activate that latent DNA. We have up to 22 different ET races in our DNA, and we have superpowers available to us, all of us. And again, really the key is to clear out those emotional traumas and blockages. Because that is how, if we're vibrating in that higher frequency, we're naturally activating that DNA without needing to go through a process. It's just naturally happening. And then as far as, the messages that are channeled, I mean, yes. So both of those books, I also have them as a meditation bundle. I've got individual classes that are evergreened, that are really cheap. And so I do have that available for the 3Ders, these messages.
The 3Ders. Well, here's another question from our 3Der. Let's see. Live Light. She goes, as a healer, is the 528 HZ the most effective healing frequency? Which healing modalities do you recommend?
Okay, so so the 528 Hertz bowl, absolutely. It is for cellular and DNA repair. And that is the one that I use in my healing sessions with my clients, as well as on the UFO tours. So I have two options on my tours. I've got an intro, which is for the people who maybe are kind of on the fence and just curious. And then I have a deep spiritual tour as well, where I lead people through a meditative journey to meet their galactic family and guides and learn to raise their vibration and call them in. And so I do use that 528 Hertz bowl for that. So as far as healing modalities, so my ETs have given me my own unique healing modality that is called Galactic Ascension channeling. And it combines energy healing from my Arcturians, my Sirians, and my Mantis. Also light language, sound healing, regression, and some other stuff. That is my healing modality. And I can do that in person or over Zoom as well. There are other, different healing modalities. Some people like Reiki, QHHT, there's a bunch. Some people are specific sound healers. I have my whole collection of chakra bowls plus that 528 Hertz bowl. So we all have the ability to heal ourselves. We just need to open ourselves up to that.
Fantastic answer to a fantastic question. All right. Well, finally we got somebody. Mr. $6 Million Man is popping up with $6 million question. And hey, man, I love this question. I'm gonna say why I love this question, because it kind of brings us back to where we started. I did mention this at the beginning of the show. And I love the way 6 Million's bring it back. Hey Lisa, nice to hear from you. What's your thoughts on what everyone is talking about lately with the so-called alien event this week? Do you feel there's any traction to it? Kind of like what I talked about, how there was a rumor floating around social media. A lot of people, And, even though, I had mentioned we did some little investigating into it, and I didn't see any really strong lead, $6 Million Man, but that's not to say there may not be something to it, But what's your opinion there, Lisa? Do you think there's a secret war going on, something that we don't know about?
So one of the things that I don't talk about this very often because I try to stay out of that kind of fear parameter. But what I do understand is if there is any kind of alien invasion going on, it's not the ETs doing it. It's a false flag from the governments trying to keep people in fear and in control. And so that's my thought. And I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but there is a lot of speculation that at some point something like that might happen. But again, we have these multiple timelines going on. So there is a timeline where it did happen today, perhaps, or this week. And we're in a timeline where it didn't happen. So.
And, I try to make so much sense of that because, I do believe some of these crafts are ours, and I do believe that the government, the dark ops out there do put these crazy stories and crazy rumors to kind of keep us, not guessing and not knowing what's going on. The UAP, the UAP hearings that Congress held just the other week, was it coincidental that it was about 3 days before the big election? I don't think so.
Right.
So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on, but a great question, $6 Million Man. But at this point, who knows? But I think it's probably, the big boys messing with their heads a little bit. We got one more question here before we get out, and Liv is going to top it off here. Would you offer videos of your UFO tours experience for those who cannot attend in person? And when is your timeline book being released? Oh, great question.
So I actually do have a compilation of some of the craft that we've gotten on the night vision video camera on my Facebook page, Big Island UFO Tours business Facebook page. And so there are some examples of that. And then the timeline book is actually, I just talked to my publisher yesterday. We are releasing it January 16th. We got to get through the holidays because there's too much going on. And so January 16th, and that will be available on Amazon as well as my website.
That is awesome. And now, since, we're getting here close to the end of the show, first of all, I want to say, Lisa, you've been great. And is there where can we learn more about you? Where can we check out the podcast? Where's it at? Let us hear it.
So, okay, the podcast is Connection to the Cosmos with Dr. Lisa Thompson. It's on YouTube as well as all the podcast outlets. So if you watch on YouTube, you get to see the people. Otherwise, you just get to hear it. And then my website is drlisajthompson.com or mysticmanta.com. And then I also have bigislandUFOtours.com. And then I can be found on Facebook, Dr. Lisa Thompson or Big Island UFO Tours. And then I'm also on Instagram, Dr. Lisa Thompson _author.
Awesome. And, like I said, if we can't make it to Hawaii, you do a virtual thing, correct?
It's not exactly virtual, but I have samples of what we see. Yeah.
And if we are in Hawaii, not only can we enjoy some delicious spam, we can also go on one of your amazing tours, which that would be something super cool to experience. So you hear that, guys? Any vacation coming up soon? You guys listening out there, you want to check out Dr. Lisa Thompson's tours. Well, this has been a fantastic episode, very interesting. And unfortunately, an hour is not enough time. We'll have to get you back on here, Lisa, to talk about some more of these experiences and stuff. But I just want to say, hey, thank you so much for coming on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. You were fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to all you listeners and viewers. Lisa, thank you so much for popping in here tonight. Liv, like always, with your awesome questions, and $6 Million Man with a good one, too. David Martin, I believe I seen you pop in there, man. Thank you guys so much. I love seeing you guys pop into the chat. If you guys will, tell your friends, spread the word, tell folks to check us out. We stream live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Come in with your questions. The more questions, the better. It keeps things flowing well. And like I said, you guys have some of the best questions for our guests. Thank you so much. You make my job easier. You really do. Guys, if you have not done so, head over to Patreon at Heed the World. Show us a little bit of love. Make a little donation. That gets you access to some really cool investigative articles by our Ryan Stacy at experiencersupport.org. You can check that out. A lot of cool stuff Ryan really digs into. Also, if you have not done so yet, show your boy some love. Me, yes, Danny Whitson. Head over to Instagram at Super Magic Boy. Give me a follow. And at Danny Whitson Magic and Comedy on Facebook. I post where I'm going to be. I do shows all over the place, so I would love to see you guys at one of my shows. I don't know who we got next week. I don't know, Chris. Do you have any clue? Do you know? Not yet? We don't know. But we will be back with interesting guests, so you definitely want to stay tuned and follow the page and the YouTube page. Like always, guys, we are broadcasting live from the E-United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. I'm trying to think anything else I need to plug. I don't know, but I believe that covers it. What do you think, Chris? Does it cover it? He's giving me the thumbs up, folks. You can't see it, but Chris is give me 2 thumbs. 2 thumbs. Now he's giving me 2 thumbs. So I want to say, I guess it's safe to say that we're going to close the show. And guys, be sure to check out Dr. Lisa Thompson's podcast. Be sure to, and like I said, if you're ever in Hawaii, check out one of these tours because, I mean, this sounds awesome. And Hawaii does get a whole lot of activity. And she definitely would be somebody to look up if you're out in that area. Definitely something and that you could learn a lot about. Guys, you guys have been fantastic. This is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. I'm Danny Whitson, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.